Good morning. Thank you for joining us. This is FWE's first ever live webinar. So here at FWE, we love to innovate, and this time we are coming to you live this morning from SFU Labs?
SFU Venture Labs.
SFU Venture Labs. Thank you. Joining me this morning is Mike Volker, who has been a subject matter expert with FWE since the beginning, I just found out. So since 2002, Mike has been joining FWE to speak about investing. My name is Larkin Mackenzie Ast. I am the general manager at FWE, and I'm going to turn the mic over to Mike for him to introduce himself, give you an idea of who he is, and then I'll do a quick hello, and we'll move on from there.
Okay, thanks Larkin, and thanks for joining us this morning. I've been doing angel investing for over 30 years. Like many of you, I started out as an entrepreneur in Waterloo, Ontario, built a computer company, and then sold it, and decided that I would take some of the profits and use those to help up-and-coming entrepreneurs by investing in their companies. And I've been doing that for a long, long time and have invested in well over 100 companies. And I've seen, because the subject matter here is pitches, I've seen literally thousands of pitches.
And you were just telling me about some of the pitch events. I mean, I feel like you've probably seen hundreds of pitches in just the last month. So we are not, Mike is not exaggerating when he says thousands. I feel like I would put it in the hundreds of thousands. So my name is Larkin Mackenzie Ast. I was once upon a time an entrepreneur. I was a casting director in the film and television industry. And then I went and I worked with the Premier's office here in the province of BC, appointing people to sit on public boards. I moved on to strategic HR for Canfor, and then I joined FWE in January. And I'm very excited to be here at FWE, and I'm very excited when we try something new like this. So hopefully you enjoy seeing our faces and that today was not a waste of makeup.
I have makeup. I don't have makeup.
You didn't put makeup on this morning?
No.
You just woke up like that?
Yeah, right.
So this morning we are talking about pitching for investment, but we're here because you know about our Pitch for the Purse program. So Pitch for the Purse is an education program that FWE launched last year. We launched it because we saw a need, which was that female entrepreneurs find it very challenging to access capital. And we all know that pitching for investment can be daunting, to say the least. So we decided that we wanted to provide this education opportunity, this program, to help demystify pitching for investment. With respect to Pitch for the Purse, a number of you have signed up to learn about pitching for investment today, but we also want you to consider applying to Pitch for the Purse. So on your screen right now, you can see that the applications are currently open for Pitch for the Purse. It's a very simple process. You fill out your application and you upload a 30-second pitch video. We provide you with mentorship, support, and education all along the way. So on November 30th, we will be holding our pitch semifinals event. If you are chosen as one of our 10 semifinalists, you will be paired with a coach for 1 month of intensive mentorship and coaching to prepare you for the pitch semifinals. If you are not selected as one of our 10 semifinalists, it's still important to us that we support you. And so what we provide then is access to what we call small pitch sessions. So every single woman who signs up for Pitch for the Purse will have the opportunity to pitch for investment experts. After our Pitch Semifinals event, we will have 3 semifinalists who will receive 3 months of further coaching from a mentor who will help them prepare for the Pitch Semifinals, which take place at our gala on February 15th of 2018. So our focus here for Pitch for the Purse is on making sure that you are educated, supported, and mentored, and that you walk away from the experience with a very strong understanding of pitching for investment, because we want to help you take your business to the next level, and oftentimes that does include seeking investment. So with that being said, I did want to just level set quickly. This morning, Mike and I were just chatting about this. While the Pitch for the Purse application is a 30-second video, when Mike and I are talking about a pitch this morning, we're going to be talking about a 5-minute pitch. So we'll also get into, in a little bit, we'll be talking about the anatomy of a great pitch, and we will talk then about perhaps different lengths of pitch, but so that you understand when we talk about a pitch right now, the majority of the time, or we're assuming that we're talking about a 5-minute pitch. So Mike, when we hear from our entrepreneurs in our community, we often hear when we ask them to do an elevator pitch, we often hear them say, well, what if I don't actually need money? And why is a great pitch important? So can you share with us why it is? Why is it key?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, I think it's important for you to hear your own pitch and get excited about what you're trying to do. So, the idea of a pitch is to get someone interested, whether it's an investment or maybe an employee, right? You might use it to recruit somebody to join your team, or maybe it's a customer, and the customer wants to know not just about your product, maybe about your business a little bit. Or maybe it's someone in government. Maybe you're looking for some help or some mentoring. Maybe you're not looking for funding, but maybe you're looking for a director, an advisor. So these are all people that you want to tell your story to, and get them excited about your company. But you start with yourself. If you can't get yourself excited about it, there's no point trying to get someone else.
That's fair.
So that's a good place to begin.
Yeah, that is a good place to begin.
And I think, it's the old adage, if you don't have a plan or a roadmap, any path will get you there. And the idea here is to really start focusing on what you want to accomplish with your business.
Right. It's a bit of a, if you fail to plan to fail.
Exactly.
Right. And of course, there's also something that we've talked about is the importance of seeking money when you don't need it. So my understanding, and I look to you for validation on this, is that it's easier to get funding and to get investment when you don't need it, and that is the best time to look for it. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Especially, it's especially bad when you're desperate, because then people not only see you in a panic mode, they may take advantage of you, but it also tells them that you're not prepared and that you let it go too long. So right away, you've got a strike against you if you've let it go too long. Whereas people will respect the fact that you're preparing for the future by seeking investment long before you think you need it.
Right.
You're paving the way, you're talking to potential investors, letting them know a little bit about your business, warming them up, giving them updates, and really starting to build that relationship.
That's a very interesting point, that actually it can be a strike against you from a business standpoint, that you haven't planned properly.
Right, absolutely.
Fascinating, thank you. I have just been reminded that actually we have a poll that should be popping up on your screen right now. So we'd love to get a sense from you whether you've ever pitched your business for investment before. So if you wouldn't mind just taking a quick second to tick one of those boxes so that we just have a better understanding of the community that has joined us this morning. We're just waiting for those results to come in.
Oh, okay.
Wow, so 52% of you have pitched for investment before this. That's a higher number than I had thought. Good for you. So you know how incredibly nerve-wracking it can be. And for those of you, that 48% of you that haven't, we're very happy that you joined us this morning so we can help dispel some of the myths around it. So Mike, investing comes with the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. Let's take it easy on you, and can you start off by telling us a little bit about some of your favorite, or maybe your favorite, investing story?
My favorite one is actually a very recent one. It just happened literally in September, so just last month. And this is a local company, a Vancouver company called Daya Foods, Inc. And Daya Foods, many of you probably know it. It's they make a lot of vegan products, But it's not just for the vegan market, it's also for people who are health conscious, low fat, no cholesterol, no soy, no allergens. And it started as a small company by a couple of entrepreneurs in North Vancouver and got funded entirely by angel investors and is now a $100 million company in sales. So they're doing $100 million, and that was in 8 years. So they got started in 2009, and then just recently was acquired by a Japanese company for $405 million. So that's a really good payout. So the early angel investors that got into that company made almost 30 times their money. So a $100,000 investment by an angel, which is a typical size investment for an angel, paid out $3 million.
That's amazing.
So that's a good story.
That is a good story. Now, you know that I have to ask the next, which is, can you, obviously protecting anonymity, but can you tell us about one of your lowest lows of investing?
Well, I'll generalize. I won't mention any names, but in the angel business, we know that most of our investments are going to fail. We know that they're going to return zero. So as an example, I have a small angel fund that I run, and we've, over the last 13 years, invested in 71 companies. And out of the 71, over 30 are pretty well gone. And of the 40 that are remaining, and Dea was one of those. Out of the 40 that are remaining, there's maybe a dozen, 2 dozen that are looking really good. But many of the companies have failed, and they fail early and they fail quickly. And it's usually a lack of experience that causes that failure. But angels know that, and the whole idea in angel investing is to do a lot of investments so that you do get those exceptional winners, like Dea, for example.
Yeah. Wow. Well, it certainly shows why a Dea really stands out as a high. Thank you for sharing. So now we're going to talk about the anatomy of a great pitch. So, Mike, do you want to walk us through the do's and don'ts of great pitch?
So, earlier we said that you hear thousands of pitches, right?
Yeah.
So,
hundreds of thousands. Remember, I took it up.
Yes, you did. And just yesterday, for example, we had one of our angel meetings and got another one this afternoon. And after you hear so many pitches all the time, you really need something that's refreshing and that stands out. And the best word that I can use is compelling. So you want your pitch to be really compelling. Okay? And you need to explain very quickly, right at the beginning, what are you doing? What is it that you're doing that's going to make money? So I wouldn't spend a lot of time, talking about the secret, the secret sauce, the intellectual property, or how it works, or the service. I wouldn't go into a lot of detail. I would just give a high-level picture of how you're going to make money, what it is you're doing, and then secondly, what's important for the investor is how are they going to make money? And that's the part that's often overlooked in an investment pitch. And in fact, sometimes it's not even mentioned at all.
Right.
And what you want to do is say to an investor, just like the Dea example, okay, if you invest $100,000 in me today, in 10 years, I'm going to give you 10, 20, 30 times your money back, and here's why. So those are the two key things. How are you going to make money? How's the investor going to make money? And then, depending on how much time you have for the pitch, you can give a little more detail. One of the things that's obviously really important is you, because the investor is not investing in a company, they're investing in you and your team.
Yeah.
So why you? What made who do you have to be worried about?
Yeah.
Competition.
Who are you keeping your eye on?
I hear a lot of pitches where that's not mentioned, where the entrepreneurs aren't even aware sometimes of who might come and eat their lunch.
Yes.
So that's really important.
Yes.
So those are really the key things to get out in the business.
Yeah. And when you say that you're investing in the person, so just to break it down a little bit, is it a gut instinct that you get? Is it, do you have any, you want them to have this experience behind them, or is it just that they give you a sense of confidence in them and their ability to succeed?
I'd say confidence.
Okay.
First of all, they have to be really passionate about their business. So they have to be really committed to it. If they're just kind of dabbling in it or they're not sure, that turns you off right away. So you want them to be fully absorbed by the business. Now, the problem that you get, you've probably heard of Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours, right? To be successful at anything, you have to put the 10,000 hours in. But, that's roughly 5 years of hard work. And so if you're starting up as an entrepreneur, you don't have 10,000 hours, right? So what are you going to do about that? There are other people that you can engage in your business that have that. And they could be your mentors, your advisors, your directors. So as long as you have the passion and the drive, but lack the expertise, you can still score with investors by aligning yourself with others who can bring that to the party.
Of course. So you would say if someone didn't have the experience, it would be a great thing to include in a pitch, how they have built a team around them that sort of fills those gaps.
Right.
Wonderful. Great. Okay. And then, of course, the whole question about identifying who their competition is. So I have heard that as well in a number of pitches, that there just seems to be no mention of competition. But you're saying make sure, kind of put it out there, make sure that you're addressing it right off the top.
It's interesting. Sometimes when we're sitting in our room hearing entrepreneurs in person make pitches, I'll sit there on my laptop and I'll Google something about what they're saying. And I'll be looking for competitors.
Of course.
And then in the question and answer session, I'll say, well, did you hear about company ABC, down in Ohio? And they look kind of blank, and as if, well, I've never heard of that. And that's a bit worrisome. So
another flag for an investor.
Another flag, and I think it's really important when you do have, even before you prepare your pitch, is to just do as much research as you possibly can about others that are out there. Because you can bet that if you've got a good idea, someone else probably has it. It's a big world. They may be in India, they may be in Australia, but they may have the same idea. So it's important for you to know about those and then figure out how you're going to differentiate from those.
And maybe even learn from their mistakes. Right? There could be there are a lot of opportunities there, but I think a huge learning there is don't shy away from addressing the fact that you have competitors, because the assumption will be that you do, and it's important that you are aware of them before they're brought to your attention in a Q&A. You sound like a tough investor to be up in the run up.
Sometimes I have to laugh because sometimes, and another turn off is when someone says, we have no competition, right? Because it sort of makes you suspicious. It almost makes you want to prove them wrong and say you must have competition, right?
Let me get on my Google again.
So it's a good tactic. So let's say you really don't have. Let's say you just can't find anybody that's doing exactly what you are. It's still good to not to make something up, but to come up with something similar. So like if you're solving a problem or addressing a need, there are probably other ways of solving that problem or addressing that need. They may not be in your sort of product area. They may be an older technology. You may have a new technology, but it's still the same customer that you're going after. So you might approach it. What is it that the customer, potential customer, is now doing, and how will it be that what you're doing is better for that customer?
Yes, because chances are, if there's a need, they are fulfilling that need somehow right now. Wonderful. And how about the idea of the money, addressing money in a pitch? should it be explicit in terms of what they're going to do, or let me rephrase, how explicit should they be about what they're going to do with the money that they would get from you?
Quite explicit, but first, I think you have to figure out how much you need. And that's often a big downfall. The big mistake, and this is a bit of a dilemma, because the big mistake that most entrepreneurs make is not asking for enough. And then they often run out before they get to their first objectives or first targets, and then it's tough to go back and get more. So it's important to know how much you need to do serious cash flow projections.
Yeah.
But the dilemma is that, let's say you need $1 million to get your venture launched. That may be a stretch if you have no customers, no track record, no history. You come to an angel forum for the first time, and you say, I need $1 million. That just may be very difficult to get. So our sweet spot, for example, typically in seed stages for angel investing, companies raise between 500,000 and $1 million. 600 is sort of the Canadian average last year.
Okay.
And so you also have to keep that in mind. And what you might do is stage an investment, ask for 2 tranches. But regardless, it's really important to know how much you need at the beginning, and then to be clear on what that's being used for. Is it to hire people? Is it to rent equipment? What's it for? And depending what it's for, there may be other sources of capital for those needs. For example, you might be able to lease equipment rather than buy it, or rent rather than buy. Right?
Yeah.
Or even, a lot of entrepreneurs say they need the money to hire people. I need to, and the most common ones, I need to hire a salesperson, get out there and sell my product. But maybe you can bring that person in as a stakeholder. Maybe give them shares, rather than give. And my favorite story on this is Research in Motion, the BlackBerry people.
Of course.
I love this story.
Everyone knows RIM.
Yeah, so when Michael Azarides got RIM going back in the 80s, I negotiated a small investment with him.
Yeah.
I would have had a nice chunk of RIM, which I never took. But I said to him, Mike, what do you need the money for, right? That's your question. What do you need the money for? He said, I need to pay my technicians. I said, well, listen, why don't you, instead of taking my money, giving me shares, and giving them my money as a paycheck, cut me out, leave me out of the deal, and give them the shares in exchange for them working extra hours. Maybe give them, obviously they have to feed their families, but they may not need a big paycheck to do that. So if they can live on half, give them half, and give them shares. And then that way you also get them really engaged, committed to the business. Long story short, he did that, and those guys
are laughing.
I met one of, it actually was a lady. She was one of the first employees, and I met her at an art gallery in Waterloo some years ago. And I said, what are you doing now? And she says, oh, we just donated $100 million to the Arts Foundation. So, that was a nice payoff. So there's other...
That was a good move for those technicians.
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. So, such a great way to think of different ways to seek your investment.
Right.
So what is in it for the investor? Can you tell us a bit about that from your side?
Yeah, so, and every investor is different. This is another thing, by the way, about individual investors. When you talk to a banker or a government employee or an institutional investor, they all kind of think the same. They have their metrics, they have their standards, they have their policies. But individuals are so different, right? So some individuals like to invest early, some like to invest later, some like certain areas of investment, and so on. But, the thing that I look for, and I know a lot of other people look for, they're looking for something that can be big, that's good, maybe environmentally good, good for society.
Good as in big G good.
Yes, and of course, able to contribute some of their expertise. That's how I got started, because I was in the computer business, so I wanted to invest in other computer companies because I had a lot of connections. I had a lot of knowledge in that industry, and I thought I would be able to help a startup with that knowledge and with that expertise. So I would bring that 10,000 hours to the startup. So when I look at a deal, I'm looking for something that is financially good, big outcome, another 30x potential,
of course,
and interesting, fun, and a turn off is when you ask them a question and they kind of dismiss it, especially if it's around competition or something like that. So, oh, we're not worried about that because blah, blah, blah. That's a bit troublesome, especially if they're fresh and don't have that experience.
Right. Okay, wonderful. Now, so what would you say is the most, I think we've touched on it, but I'm going to ask it so we can really draw it out explicitly. So what's the most important thing for someone to convey when they're describing their business?
I think the opportunity, the potential. And for them, why they're so passionate about it. So you have to convey, the enthusiasm, the excitement. You have to convey that. And you do that by explaining, the opportunity. Don't make the mistake. This is a big mistake and really turns off a lot of people when they hear this. When the entrepreneur says, well, we're going after this $10 billion market. It's a big, big market. But that's very meaningless because you're not going to get, 10% or 1% of a $10 billion market. It's better to take your market and define it more. For automotive market. But if you're doing something around safety, maybe you've got a new infant seatbelt, for example, for babies in a car, then it's that market you're looking at. It's not the automobile market. And for that matter, you wouldn't even say it's the seat market or the seatbelt market. You'd say it's the seatbelt market or the safety market for infants under the age of 2 in passenger vehicles or something like that. And that might be a $100 million market. And you're going to convey to the investor how you're going to dominate that market. Percent of a market. Say we're going to dominate this market. We're going to get more than 50% of that market as you define it. Because if you define that market really precisely and succinctly, you can dominate it and you can own that market. It's like inventing your own rules and inventing your own game rather than playing somebody else's game.
And so definitely don't shy away from identifying your niche and calling it a niche rather than saying that you can handle
never use that big number. Never use the $1 billion number. And never use the small percentage. It's better to have a small market. By small, I mean, in the millions or hundreds of millions, not billions. And don't say 1%. Because people say, well, that's not very exciting. Why would I invest in a company that's going to be a bit player? I want to invest in a company that's really dominating and leading in this particular niche. That's what gets investors excited.
And so what would you say, other than the 1%, what would you say kills a pitch?
What often kills a pitch is someone who's not well informed or knowledgeable about that business, someone who looks like they're not well prepared, who's overboard in hyping it. Now, there's a fine line between hyperbole, really hyping and promoting your business versus really being positive about it, And you've got to figure out what that is, So you want to be careful not to over-exaggerate. When someone says, for example, they say, well, we're going to be $100 million company in 5 years. That's not impossible, but it's very difficult.
Okay.
And so that could be a bit of a turnoff because it looks like the person is just unrealistic, right? So you have to look at, just how quickly, do a little bit of homework, what seems to be reasonable. Nothing wrong with being ambitious, but don't be ambitious without having done your homework and being able to support. Because even though in a pitch you might say we're going to be a $100 million company in 5 years, when you meet one-on-one with the investors, you better have a pretty good explanation and answer for that.
You need to have a very clear plan on how that's going to be feasible.
Because remember, when you're doing a pitch, the idea is not to sign an agreement right then and there. The whole idea, especially with a 30-second or a 90, sit down for an hour or two or more and get all the facts, all the information, look at your business plan, and really drill down. So the whole idea behind a pitch is just to stand out from the crowd, because there are so many people pitching to a similar audience. And what you want to do is you want to get the attention of those investors and get one or two or whatever in a room with you that you can really start to talk serious.
Right. So it's the teaser that will entice someone to want to sit down with you, as you say, for an hour, where you can get into the meat and potatoes of what you do and what your business is. But great way to think of it as, I don't need to cram everything into these 5 minutes. I need to make them interested enough. I need to hook them enough that they want to hear more.
That's it.
So can we talk a little bit? We chatted about it off the top, but the 90-second pitch, the preview that we talked about, versus the 5-minute versus the 10-minute. Can you just give our community this morning an idea of sort of what those 3 lengths of pitch are used for?
And as we chatted about just before the session, it takes you a lot more time to do a 30-second pitch than a 5-minute pitch.
Yes.
Because you really have to figure out what to put in that 30-second pitch. So it's really the highlights. You really want to grab your audience. You really want to get the attention. So you have to figure out what it is that's so exciting that you're going to commit your life, or at least the next 10 years of your life, to this venture. That's what you got to get out in the 30 seconds. In a 90-second pitch, then you go a little bit further and you talk about why it's so important to you, but why it's also important to the investor.
Right.
And then in the 5-minute pitch, you go into a little bit more detail. That's when you can talk a little bit more about your financial projections, how you're going to get to 10 million in sales or 100 million. You're going to talk a little bit about your competitive advantage. Why you? Like, why is it you that's going to make the difference? Why is it your product? All of those things. But you have to also be careful not to, again, even in a 5-minute pitch, what I find is sometimes when there's too much detail, then investors kind of, their eyes glaze over and they get lost. And that happens a lot in these presentations. So it doesn't hurt to be repetitive. We see that in TV commercials. Repetition is important.
Find your soundbite. Don't be afraid to use it.
And you don't want to say too much that will turn somebody off. You just want to keep driving home this point about how good your business is going to be and how big it's going to get and how you're going to make that happen and how it's going to be good for you, your customers, and your investors. Customers are important. That's one thing we haven't said too much about. One of the things that angels always look for, and one of the questions I'll say, do you have any customers? Is anybody right now eating the pudding? Right? They want to know if people are all institutional investors, what we call due diligence, kicking the tires and checking out the company, could be very brief for an angel. For example, the Daya Foods company that I mentioned, the due diligence on that, I don't think I spent more than half a day on that. Because right off the bat, there were certain things in place, and I didn't have to spend a lot of time. But you have to be able to face that and to be prepared for that.
Right. Interesting. Okay. Thank you. And what about, we should probably, because we've mentioned it, the 10-minute pitch. Because you mentioned that briefly when we were chatting about this before, and I hadn't even thought about the usefulness of the 10-minute pitch. But if you wouldn't mind sharing with the community when you would ever be doing a 10-minute pitch.
Yeah, so we have, for example, I'm involved with a number of different angel forums, and they're all a little different in terms of the style. One of them does do a 10-minute pitch, and usually that happens after they've already done a preliminary pitch, and they get invited back to give a little more detail.
Right.
And often these are also companies that have already done one round of investment, and now they're coming back for additional funding. But it varies depending on the geography, depending on the angel group. 5-10 minutes, frankly, that big a difference between 5 and 10 minutes. In fact, you always have the problem with a 10-minute pitch where you start to lose investors. Especially because the other thing to remember is you want to get their attention in the first minute or the first 30 seconds. And if you don't do that, they're not going to pay close attention to the rest of it. And so if you're doing a 10-minute pitch and you're not successful in getting that attention from the audience in the first minute, then
you just making them for 9 minutes.
Making them suffer for 9 minutes, they're going to come out disliking you rather than
they're not going to give you $100,000
or being neutral, right?
Yeah. Interesting. Now, and one, just to share a quick conversation that Mike and I had earlier, was talking about how that 90-second pitch really is the bones. It's the beginning of what you build upon from that point. So exactly as you said, that 30-second pitch is really why does this matter, and then you continue building on that. So it's good to see your pitch lengths as sort of building blocks, but everything goes back to that 30-second and that 90-second pitch. So thank you. We will. We have a handout that will be sent to you now. It's the Front Funder Guide on Funding Stages. So this segues nicely for Mike to tell us a little bit about what other options there are for funding outside of angel investment. So this is a great opportunity. I've learned so much from Mike from our conversations leading up to this about the investing landscape, if you will. So would you mind giving everyone a little overview of that?
There are a lot of sources of capital for your business. And I've actually got a website just dedicated to that. It's called MoneyLinks, moneylinks.ca.
Moneylinks.ca.
And I break it down into red, green, and gold sources of money.
Okay.
So the red sources are debt type sources like bank loans, credit cards, those kinds of things. And don't be shy about piling on a little debt on your credit card.
Right.
It may seem expensive, 18% or whatever on the credit card may sound like a lot, but it's still cheaper than giving away shares in your company. Because you're going to have a shareholder and you're going to be sharing your profit forever with that shareholder.
Yes.
Whereas with a credit card, even if it's 18%, you can get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Conventional bank loans, mortgaging your house. Angels love it when entrepreneurs are at risk, when they borrowed money, because now they really have to perform to pay that back, right?
They have skin in the game.
Yeah. So red is debt, and then we've got green, and that's what I would call sort of growth capital. That's why I call it green.
Okay.
You're planting seeds and growing it. That's the angel investment. That's friends and family. Don't underestimate friends and family. It's always good to get support from people that you know. We call that love money, people that love you, invest in you.
That's nice.
So that's green. And then the golden capital, that's the grants and the free money. That's where government comes in and they have special programs to spur economic development or other economic activity. And the Canadian government has the NRC IRAP program, and they have something called the concierge service. which is really interesting because one of the things that entrepreneurs find difficult is learning about all of the sources of government funding. So the concierge service is a one-stop shop. You go there, phone them. I mean, you don't physically go there. You call them up, and they'll point you to what might be relevant for your business. So if you're in a particular industry sector or a particular, say, racial background, you know, there may be programs for certain classes or types of categories, whatever you want to call it, of people. And so you can find that out through the concierge service. So there are, you know, and some of the obvious sources of funding too are, for example, your suppliers. If you're buying product that you're working on and building something, your suppliers might give you credit. Right?
Yeah.
You may have to personally go on the hook for that supplier credit.
Right.
But your suppliers can be a source of funding, and your customers. So again, depending, it's a bit product and service specific, but you know, you could go to a customer and get them to, if they really like what you're doing, they might prepay, or you may give them discounts for early payment or prompt payment. So there are all kinds of sources of funding that you can go to, but if you're interested, just go to that MoneyLink site, and I've listed a lot of examples there.
Do you mind giving us a very high level, what is the difference between an angel investor and a venture capitalist?
Yeah, so generally I would say it always makes sense to go to angel investors first.
Right.
Because when you're starting, the big difference between venture capitalists and angel investors is that venture capitalists invest other people's money. It's not their money.
Right.
It's not my money, right? Whereas an angel, it's my money.
Yeah.
And I don't, other than checking with my wife, I don't have to get permission from anybody. And I don't have to worry about making a mistake.
Right.
Like a venture capitalist, if they make a mistake by not doing enough due diligence, as I was alluding to earlier, if they don't check you out and they make a mistake and they lose money, they don't look good. Right? But if I do that, I'm going by gut feeling. I don't have to do a lot of due diligence.
Yeah.
I like you. I like the opportunity. I invest in it, and it's very fast, very efficient.
Yeah.
So that's one of the big differences. The other big difference is that in general, and I'm generalizing a bit, venture capitalists like to come in at later stages.
Right.
And they like to invest more money because they typically have large funds. You know, their funds they're managing $50 million or $100 million. So they don't want to invest $100,000.
No.
You know, it's a lot of work for them to invest $100,000. They'd rather invest $1 million or $2 million.
Yeah.
Now, there are many venture capitalists that have startup funds. They have special departments or divisions within their organizations where they will look at early stage companies and co-invest at the seed stage with angel investors. But it's not that common. The other thing, though, that they'll do that, I should point out, they'll only do that if you have the potential to give them a really big exit. Because that's the other difference between
They want days.
Yeah. So another difference is that you know, an angel might be very happy investing in a company that's going to be sold for 20 or 30 million or 10 million.
Yeah.
Right. But that's not of interest to a VC because they're deploying millions and they got to make millions.
Right.
So if you tell a VC that you're going to sell for 30 million, that's just not exciting to them. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, I'd be very happy to invest in a $30 million business and make 10 times my money. Nothing at all wrong with that. But it's not for VCs. And you know, this is another disconnect I see in the marketplace. A lot of entrepreneurs think, well, they'll go to VCs without thinking about what the VCs are looking for. And you have to understand, they're looking for those what we call unicorns. They're looking for companies that are going to be worth $1 billion.
Yes.
Not just 100 million.
So it's very much about size. But really, the key that you pointed out off the top is an angel investor. You are investing your own money, whereas a VC is investing money from a fund. So It's not their own money. So they have a different stake in the game.
Yes. And one other thing, if you talk to one or two VCs and they turn you down, it's likely that the others will too. Because they think
a little formula, they've got their algorithm.
Right. But if you talk to an angel investor or 10 angel investors and they all turn you down, the 11th or 12th one might not.
Right.
Because, it's all about stage of investing, the risk.
Yeah.
Everybody's so unique and so different. I often get a little frustrated when entrepreneurs call me up and say, well, what do angels think about this? I said, I can't speak for angels, right? Because they're all so different. All you can do is ask them.
Yeah.
Go to a meeting, talk to them.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, if you do talk to 10 angels or 20, and they all say no, maybe you should be looking at what's wrong with your pitch and what's not resonating, right? But still, the message is don't give up. If you think you've got a good pitch and you're committed, don't be shy about talking to 10 or 15.
Right.
But I wouldn't waste my time with bankers or venture capitalists if you're getting a no early on.
Sort of a 2 or 3 no's from a VC or a bank means that generally they won't be interested. Whereas angels, because they are people, they have their own quirks and quirks, and they will be interested in different opportunities.
See, a VC, for instance, may be very adamant about you having customers and having sales, actual revenues from customers.
Yeah.
An angel may like the idea of you not having customers because they may be able to help you with that. They may be able to help you find the customers, but they may also be able to get into your company and get a bigger piece of the pie, right? Because if you're just starting, they may be able to get a more meaningful ownership position and not having customers. So there are those that would take that. It means more risk, right? So there are those angels that'll take a lot more risk for a bigger slice of the pie. And then there are those angels who won't talk to you if you don't have some sales or customers.
Okay. Interesting. That makes sense. So we are going to ask another question of our community this morning. So we have another poll that we're going to pop up. We'd like to get a sense of whether you are a service or product-based business. You can also see that we're about to be asking Mike about that. So if you would just take a quick second to let us know whether your business is service or product-based. I mean, self-define as you see fit, please. We'll just give that a moment, and we will try to speak up a little bit louder. I feel like it's probably amazing to see how much this has shifted, how many more businesses now are service-based than used to be. There we go. All right, so 59% of you are a service-based business versus 41% that are product. So Mike, do you have tips and tricks with respect to a pitch that you can make, any differences on a pitch, whether you're product or service-based?
Yes, I think it has to do with scaling. Scaling is really important. How quickly can you build your business? Now, you actually have to get very specific, on what type of service. So, for example, we hear a lot about something called software as a service, for instance, right? Yeah. So you may have an app or computer software. And computer software, of course, scales really nicely because anybody anywhere in the world can just download it and you generate revenue from it. Whereas a product, if you're making a physical product, you have to build that and deliver it. So you've got more limitations there, supply limitations, transportation limitations, all kinds of limitations. So it's important to explain what it is that you're delivering, whether it's a product or a service. I don't think that investors have a preference of one or the other. One of the nice things about a service is that you can hook customers on that. They'll become dependent on the service, just like your cell phone service, right? Once you subscribe to a cell phone provider, you're kind of stuck with it, and unless they really mess you up, you're not going to switch because it's a hassle to switch. So as long as you're a customer getting good service, you're probably going to stick with it. So there's that stickiness factor around services. Whereas with products, something that's especially consumables, well, Indea is a good example, right? Indea scored big with products that were enjoyed by the consumers, and the word spread, and more bought them. But the issue there is around how quickly, so people like the product, how quickly can we make it? We need a manufacturing facility that requires more capital, it requires more investment. So I think just being really intimately familiar with what it's going to take to grow the business is the key thing, more so than whether it's a product or a service.
Right. So
It
really,
can be very people dependent, right? Like a lot of services require hiring people. So that could be a limiting factor.
it could be a huge limiting factor as someone who's spent a lot of time hiring people. That is one of the great challenges. So either way, you need to be addressing your scalability is really what you're saying. So whether that is how your service is how you're going to expand your service offering, or how you're going to address the production and the dissemination side, like the production and the delivery side. So just make sure, what I'm hearing is make sure in your pitch that you're really addressing that either way, whichever it is. So scalability is really something that you need to be presenting a plan on. And what I'm really hearing from you too is that investors really want to, when we talk about having faith and buying into the entrepreneur, it's buying into the entrepreneur's strategy and planning and foresight.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. So, Mike, the question that we hear very frequently when it comes to angel investors, I know I'm never supposed to use the word unicorn unless it's related to a unicorn, but to an entrepreneur, VCs or angel investors are unicorns, if you will. How do we find angel investors?
It's actually quite easy now.
Okay.
There are, in even small communities, there are angel investors. They may not call themselves angels. Because an angel investor is really just an individual person, right? And it's usually an entrepreneur who's been successful and wants to put something back, not just to get a return, but to help. That's where the term originally came from. It was a Hollywood term where, successful stars were helping up-and-coming starlets become successful. That's where the term came from. And then Silicon Valley borrowed it and made it a business angel type of thing. But it came from Hollywood originally, taking somebody under your wing. So the idea is to, in your own community, just asking around, going to like boards of trade, chambers of commerce, business groups, and that kind of thing, because you'll find successful business people in any community, and they're usually keen to invest. But, in terms of organized or people that really are active, calling themselves active angel investors, there's thousands of them in the country, and you can find out about them through the National Angel Capital Organization, which is headquartered in Toronto.
Right.
And NACO, the website is NACO Canada, and if you go there, you can find groups in your community and then connect with those groups. And here in Vancouver, just as an example, we've got 4 or 5 venues and angel groups and organizations that meet almost every month. So it's not that difficult to connect. Now, the one thing that you should keep in mind is securities regulations. So angels are, anyone in theory could be an angel. You could be, you could put $1,000 into a company, like through crowdfunding sites, for example. And crowdfunding is allowing people who are not, let's say, in the business of angel investing to actually make some small bets on startup companies, right? But technically, in the US and in Canada, angel is sort of a casual term for what the regulators call an accredited investor. Right. So And a lot of entrepreneurs don't know this, but you are not legally allowed to sell shares in your business to someone who's not an accredited investor. Accredited doesn't mean that they have to pass a test or be licensed. Accredited basically means they have to be rich. They have to be in that proverbial 1% that we keep hearing about.
Wow.
Right? And that's a strict definition. It's not 1%. The definition is that an accredited investor has to have at least $1 million to gamble.
Okay.
You know, you can't count
So
your
as
house.
disposable.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can't count your house because in Vancouver everybody would qualify as an angel, right? So that
Just
doesn't
about to
work.
say,
Yeah.
I'm an angel.
So so you can't count your house. You have to have $1 million sitting there that you can burn through and speculate with, basically, or high income, right? If you're earning at least $200,000 a year, then you meet the definition of accredited. And then the regulators, the securities commissions across the country say, okay, you can fritter away your money and you can gamble and you can be an angel, right?
Okay.
So an angel and accredited are generally synonymous terms. One is a casual term and one is a strict definition. But if you're not accredited, and we get this a lot, like I get a lot of investors coming to me who are well off, but they're not quite at that category of being, you know, having $1 million in their bank account or their brokerage account, and they would like to invest. So now the regulators are allowing that through this new regulation called crowdfunding.
Of course.
And so now the average smaller investor who's not wealthy as accredited can invest small amounts, typically between $1,000 and $10,000. And more entrepreneurs are doing that. So instead of having 5 or 6 angel investors that will say each invest $100,000, they might go to 50 investors that invest 5 to 10,000.
Right.
That's a little more difficult to do because it's an administrative thing, not impossible, but we're seeing that happen. Just like we had crowdfunding for products, you know, like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, we've now got crowdfunding on websites like FundFunder, for example, and people can go there, and that's another alternative.
Wonderful. Thank you. I believe we have addressed a number of the questions on the screen. So what does an angel investor look for? We talked about that. It really boils down to it depends on the angel. And same with is there a magic no, actually we didn't. Do you feel that there's a magic revenue number that you're looking for?
No, again, it's because of the diversity of angels themselves. You know, some are very happy to invest in pre-revenue companies that have no sales. It may not have sales. There's a local company, for example, doing some very esoteric work in the energy field. It's a company called General Fusion. And we actually started that up about 14, 15 years ago with 40 small investors that put in a total of roughly $400,000. Now, today that company has raised mega millions from venture capitalists, but they still don't have revenues. No revenues after 15 years because it's advanced science.
Right,
and
so
until
it's all going back into R&D.
It's all R&D, and it's a very, very long-term thing. Right. So that's kind of on one extreme, if you will.
Yes.
And it is tough for investors to invest in something like that because people don't want to wait that long. This is one of the, by the way, another thing it's good to mention to angel investors in the pitch is not just how they're going to make money, but how long they have to wait.
Right.
Right.
Because
it's also the timing. Because obviously, if I'm investing in a company that's going to give me a 10 times payout in 5 years, or it looks like 5 years, that's a lot more attractive than having to wait 10 years. Right? So the timing is really important. But to your point, you don't have to have revenue. And that's what startups are typically, that's what they look like. They usually don't have revenue. But it's good to know, even in those cases, where the revenues are eventually going to come from. And when
how are you going to make money and when?
When are they going to start? You know, a lot of companies are still developing something. Right? Yeah. You got the idea, you got the product, you know who the customers are, but it's not ready yet. You can't You know, if it's software, you can't deliver it. If it's a product, you can't you can't ship it yet. So how much development still needs to be done?
Yeah.
And maybe the investor can help in that. Maybe they have some domain expertise that can contribute to that.
Absolutely.
But again, I wouldn't worry about that. You just have to talk to the right people. And usually in an audience, once you start to get a dialogue going, they'll tell you, you know, the investor, well, I won't touch pre-revenue. Someone else may say, yeah, that's my specialty. I'll go in early. I want to be the first in.
Yeah.
You know, others prefer to wait. I'll say, well, talk to me, you know, talk to these people for your first round.
Yeah.
And when you get customers and sales, then I'll be interested.
Yeah.
So it varies.
Yeah. Which is really the common theme of this is finding the right angel is really the key.
Right. Yeah.
So I believe we are now turning the talking stick over to our community. So if we have any questions, let's see. So we have a question here. Can you talk about the importance of investing in person? So that's Anne Stoll. So the importance of investing in person. I'm assuming, Anne, that means meeting the people face to face. Do you think, would that be your understanding?
We talked a little bit about it, right?
Yeah.
And my point is that is what I'm investing in, right? I'm not really investing in a business.
Yes.
Now, having said that, again, there are angels who are not, you know, they'll get turned on by maybe you've got a patent or something really revolutionary, and they may care more about that than they do about you.
Yeah.
And actually, you know, we've seen that on Dragon's Den. You know, haven't you noticed that on Dragon's Den where someone will be pitching their idea, and before you know it, the dragons want to run with it and take it over, right? Yeah. So they're investing in the idea or the product versus investing in the person.
Yeah.
And again, it comes down to the individual.
Yeah.
It also raises the question about, and one of the fears that entrepreneurs often have is, will the investor, if I make a pitch, will they steal my idea? You know, will they take my pitch and my idea and cut me out? And that's a concern I hear a lot about. So when you're pitching, if that's something that worries, first of all, I would say generally investors are too busy to go around stealing ideas, and I don't know anybody that ever has done that. And I've never actually seen it happen.
Right.
But I'm sure it has happened in a few cases.
There must be one. There must be one instance of it that creates that.
Yeah.
That story.
It's a bit of a paranoia, but you know, the way to deal with it is if you really do have some. And Dea is actually an example of that, right? Because they had a secret recipe for the first product was like a cheese, a vegan cheese, and so that was.
Yeah. There was an actual secret recipe.
There was a secret there,
probably
right?
Had to sign an NDA to see.
Well, I don't know what's in there, and I still don't. I don't know if any investors know what that recipe is. It's like the formula for Coca-Cola, right? So that's a trade secret. So you don't have to disclose that.
Yeah.
Or if you have a way of doing something, you don't have to explain in great detail what that is. Certainly not in a pitch.
Right.
Now, maybe before you get a check, you'll have to go into that a little bit. But then at that point, you can get non-disclosure agreements and things like that.
Right. Okay.
So that could work. But again, to the question here, do you invest in the person or the business? That for many investors, and certainly for me personally, first and foremost, it's in those people.
Yeah.
To build.
So you would say it's important.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean, by the way, that and again, Dea is a good example because the two co-founders that developed the formula, sure, we invested in them, but what they did early on was recruit management.
Right.
Season, they got the 10,000 hours in. They got that season.
They staffed accordingly so that they had the subject matter expertise.
Right. But still, you know, I would still argue that we invested in them because they had the wherewithal to do that.
Of course. Right? Well, it demonstrates their business savvy.
Yeah, because on day one, that CEO with the experience wasn't there. They didn't come maybe for, I forget now, but it was a few years later when that senior person joined.
Right.
But at least they got it to that point, and they had interim people to get to that stage.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So, you know, in any business, you can generalize and say, what is a company? A company means a group of people.
Yeah.
That's what it means, right? And you're investing in the people.
Yeah, wonderful. So I'm going to move us on to Maria Markakis. Her question is, what is a typical percent of shares that an angel would want?
It's usually very small.
Okay.
So as a rule of thumb, on the very first round, let's say the seed round, if you're looking for $500,000 or $600,000, you should be prepared to give up 20 to 30%. That's a rule of thumb.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so then you just divide those out accordingly. So if you're giving away, let's call it 20%, you're looking for 500,000. Everyone who gives you 100,000 would get
the pro rata share of that. You have to be quick on math, right?
4%.
Yeah. So let's say 500,000, right?
Okay.
And you're giving up 20%.
Yeah.
Right.
There we go.
Then, a fifth of that is 4%.
Is 4%.
Right. Yeah. And very few angels. You know, sometimes you'll get someone who, like, let's say, you know, I've seen a lot of companies with relatively low requirements where they may just need $100,000.
Yeah.
And in that case, you know, maybe they're willing to give up, say, 10% of the company, and that'll be one investor. And that investor will almost become more like a partner than an investor.
Right. So there's no tried and true formula, but generally it's on the low, it's a smaller percentage.
It's interesting because even when you're doing second or third rounds, it always seems to work out to that on each round, and it's funny, it doesn't really matter how much you're asking for, whether you're asking for $500,000 or $1 million, you have to be prepared to give up about a third.
Okay.
Which is kind of funny because you think, well, if I'm going to do that, I should ask for as much as possible, right? Mm-hmm. Why not ask for $3 million right off the bat and get a third? But then you get into the credibility issues, right?
Yes.
And you get into the business plan issues.
Yes.
And it's not impossible. I've seen startups get $3 million and only give up a third, but they have to have real depth and substance behind them, right? And then that can be justified. So it's part of a package deal. But as a general rule of thumb, that's what you're looking at in terms of what you have to give up. It's typically a third on, you know, 20 to 30% in that range on each round.
Okay.
And then it's negotiable.
Perfect. Thank you. Next up, Stephanie Gertson had a question, and it is, what is the minimum return for angels to invest money?
Well,
I know that everyone, but if blanket.
Everybody talks 10x.
Okay.
Right? Give me 10 times my money back. Now, that's not the minimum. Give me 10 times in 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
That's the starting point.
That's the magic formula.
Right. Now, when you think about it, 10 times your money in 10 years. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? That sounds good, doesn't it?
Yeah, sounds pretty good.
Well, if you look at that in terms of a compound rate of return, that's 27%. Compound annual rate of return. 27% is pretty good because if you put your money, like if you had your money in S&P 500 stocks over the last 10 years, you made 7 or 8%. So 27 is pretty good. But that's really, really hard to do. Right? Because of all of the failures that I mentioned. You know, so when I invest in 10 companies, and let's say I invest in 10 and 9 of them fail, and then I get my 10 times, then my total return is not that great. It's not 27%, it's 2 or 3%.
Right. And you could have just left it in the bank.
Yeah. So when you're looking at each individual deal, you know, that's kind of where you're starting from. And your story in selling to angels has to be in that range, you know. And if you think that that's hard for you or too rich, then I think you have to look at alternative sources, maybe debt and other instruments. And if you're looking at debt, if you could, for example, get someone to loan you the money, then you'd probably be looking at 10 to 15% return because obviously because of the risk, they want more than what they get leaving their money in a bank account.
Okay, wonderful. So Suzanne Carter is asking, how can you find an angel investor whose expertise is in a certain industry. So you and I have chatted offline, and you said that you prefer to invest your money in tech.
No, I
No?
mean, I
Or
invest
sort of-
across the board. Like
True.
Data was not tech in the traditional sense. It was tech in the sense that they had
Yes.
technology.
You like innovation, what you like.
Yeah, and let's face it, most businesses. It's an interesting word, innovation. I think, and I actually believe that every startup has to have something innovative about it, right? Because that's what makes it exciting, new, and different, right? If that's not there, forget it. So there's always going to be that element to it.
Mm-hmm. But if I were an entrepreneur and I had a business that was served, let's say I had developed an app, how would I find angel investors that were specifically interested in investing?
Okay, so two ways. First of all, when you come to an angel meeting, and we saw this, for example, just yesterday, we had a young lady come and make a presentation, and she said, well, I'm not here looking for money today. I'm looking for someone with expertise in this field, right? So there may be somebody in the room, and chances are that even if there isn't, someone in the room may know someone else who is. Then, so you can get to that through the angel venue, or the other way is to go to an industry organization, because most types of businesses have some organization, like, for instance, in the food business, there's the BC Food Processors organization. So you could go to their monthly meetings or to their chapter meetings, because there you will find the experts. You've got engineering societies. You've got IEEE, for example. You've got software associations. You've got food and beverage. You've got transportation. You've got sports and athletics. You've got all these different industry groups, and that's a good place to go. Now, they're not going to be littered, if you will, with angel investors, right? But that's where you get the domain expertise. And you might also find within those groups some angels. But I think the question here was, where do you get help in a particular industry sector? Is that as opposed to getting angels with expertise? Angels with expertise
that are interested in that sector.
So,
But it sounds like going to an angel group and is a great way to start. I love the idea of the industry groups.
Go at it both ways. Go at it both ways, and ask. Be right up front. We're looking for angels with expertise in pharmaceuticals or whatever that may be.
Or talking to one angel and saying, okay, well, this is the area that we are in. Do you know of another angel who would be interested in coming in?
And sometimes what I see happening is someone who's really sharp in a particular sector may not be an active angel investor. They may not actually be accredited according to the definition, right? So they may work with an angel who is accredited, right? So you may get 2 or 3 people, and even the person who doesn't meet the qualifications, they may still be willing to commit a small amount, say through crowdfunding. They may put $10,000 in, but then an angel investor who knows that person says, oh, well, if he's in, I'll give you another $100,000, right? So you can package things that way. And I've seen that a lot. I've seen that, and that works actually quite well, because then the angel has confidence that there's the expertise that's needed, right? And the entrepreneur gets the expertise and the funding.
Wonderful. Thank you. Oh, Sonia Brycel, she's asked if we can make a 30-second pitch as an example. Do you want to take the run?
That's challenging.
It is on the fly.
Well,
do you want me to I can give a whirl at my
you want to go first?
Then they'll give you another couple of seconds to prepare yourself.
Okay.
My name is Larkin Mackenzie Ast, and I am the General Manager for the Forum for Women Entrepreneurs. We are a charitable organization that provides mentorship and education to women entrepreneurs. Today, I am pitching for $100,000 in investment which will go to growing our E-Series program across Canada. Each year, we put 100 women through E-Series, and we have the numbers to prove that since 2002, our grads have an over 90% success rate of staying in business. We also know that our grads go on to create 10 jobs in the first 3 years after E-Series. Your investment in FWE will help us grow the economy, will help us grow the job market by, how many is that? 100 jobs next year. Thank you.
Was that 30 seconds?
I don't know.
And now it's my
Let's
turn.
go with, let's say that was 30 seconds.
Okay.
That was actually on the fly, by the way. Okay, go ahead.
Good. Okay. Let me give it a shot.
Okay.
Okay. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Mike Volker, and I'm chairman of a publicly listed company called Tamaya Capital Corporation. And what we do that's uniquely different in the finance community is we invest in young companies, not by taking shares or ownership positions, but we'll take a percentage of your monthly revenues, typically 2 or 3%. And when you've paid us back a guaranteed or negotiated amount, then we're gone. So you get the capital that you need to grow your business without diluting and giving away any ownership position. And for investors in our fund, we pay 12% annual interest, and you get that in your bank account every month like clockwork. So please, if you're an investor, join us. If you're an entrepreneur and you need funding, call us. Thank you.
Wow, that was really good.
Did you like that?
Yeah, I should have just let you do it off the top. I shouldn't have done my own. That was great.
I hope we recorded it. Maybe I
You
can use
did.
it.
You should.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
you can use that going forward. We'll put it on your social media at the end of it.
Okay.
Oh, Sonia, that was just cruel of you.
Yes,
Anyhow,
it was, yeah.
wasn't it?
Especially
Sonia,
this
I'm
time
gonna
of day.
find her.
Well, the phone is still
So I think we can take, let's go with one more question. So we're going to, Christina Chu asked us, Mike, how many female entrepreneurs approached you in the last month, and are you seeing trends and common characteristics in female entrepreneurs?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's interesting because just yesterday, we had quite a few at our monthly angel meeting.
Really?
I didn't do the math, but just off the top, I'd say, somewhere close to a third now,
Good.
maybe 30 to 40%. We're seeing more and more.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And are you seeing trends in what they're pitching, like what their businesses are?
Seeing a lot in health. There seem to be more female entrepreneurs in health and life sciences, pharmaceuticals, that kind of thing. Seeing quite a few.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're seeing more and more, and what we're missing is more female angel investors.
Yes.
But I think that's going to happen. I think that's happening as the female entrepreneurs become successful,
absolutely,
get some big
they start
paychecks,
to,
they'll come back in. And it's all about, part of angel investing is giving back too. It's not just about making a buck.
money,
But
right? Yeah.
of course, you want to make money because otherwise you can't keep doing it. But,
Yes, agreed. It's not sustainable if you're just losing all the time.
Yeah.
But no, there are definitely a number of investing groups that are popping up. I would say across BC, I'm sure across Canada, but certainly that we at FWE hear about, of groups of women getting together, investing money, and oftentimes choosing to invest money only in women-run businesses.
Well, my colleague that's been helping me run the Vancouver Angel Network now for almost 20 years is a female.
Yeah.
And she does a lot of investing herself. She's entrepreneurial, and she's a good coach too for female entrepreneurs.
Talk about her
Okay.
offline.
All right.
So thank you so much for your questions, other than Sonia, who just tortured us. I'm just joking. That was wonderful. It's always good to put us on the spot as well. I would like to chat really quickly about E-Series Toronto. So you will be receiving a flyer in your inbox, I believe. Yes, I believe this is being sent to you via email. So from November 6th to 8th, we are hosting our E-Series in Toronto. So last year, we took E-Series, which is our flagship program that we've been running here in Vancouver since 2002. We took it out to Toronto. We added, as I like to say, big smoke flavor to our e-series. Last year, we did it as a one-day offering, but this year we're taking the full 3-day program out to Toronto. So we have some exceptional speakers who will be joining us. We have Victoria Sopik, who founded Kids and Company, and anyone who has children or who is familiar with the challenges of childcare will know of Kids and Company. We have Devin Brooks, who was one of the co-founders of Blow Dry Bars. We have Michelle Romano, who everybody knows as one of the dragons on Dragon's Den. We have Lara Little, who started Lucime. And we have Jamie Michaels, who is the head of, I believe it's branding for Twitter Canada. So we're very excited. We are sharing this in case any of you are interested in applying, but certainly we ask if you would please share this with your communities as well. We believe very strongly at FWE in the power of shoulder tapping. So if we'd love for you to pay this forward, send it on to anyone that you know, male or female, because great entrepreneurs know great entrepreneurs, and we strongly believe in that. So we have until October 18th, which gives us 6 more days of applications being open. So e-series, just a quick blurb, is a 3-day mini MBA that is entirely focused on entrepreneurs. So we accept up to 50 women in the program at a time. Those 50 women are then divided into classes. So those 3 classes are based on your size and stage of business. And the sessions are run by entrepreneurs who are subject matter experts in their field. So they've achieved real success in, say, sales and marketing, or in communications, or in branding. So we have them come in and lead the session. So it's very much a focus. It's for entrepreneurs, by entrepreneurs, featuring entrepreneurs. And of course, we have some lawyers, accountants, and bankers come in to give you some of that hard knowledge as well. So please spread the word. And of course, the program which brings us here this morning, Pitch for the Purse. So now that we have spent nearly an hour and a half with you, walking you through how to pitch for investment, and hopefully really demystifying it for you to prep you for putting together your 30-second pitch to apply to Pitch for the Purse. And again, I cannot emphasize enough how much Pitch for the Purse focuses on providing you with the education and the mentorship. So it's really about support at FWE. It's about the education and the mentorship to help you succeed. So whether you are one of our semifinalists or one of our finalists, you will receive support. You will have the opportunity to pitch for experts in investing, and they will be happy to provide you with feedback on your pitch. And then, of course, if you are a semifinalist, you will have 1 month of coaching, one-on-one, to prepare you for your 5-minute pitch at the semifinals on November 30th. And then our 3 finalists will have 3 months of deep dive mentorship with their mentors to prepare them to pitch live at our gala on February 15th. So at our gala, there are 650 people in the room, and it is the audience who gets to choose the best pitch. And the person who is selected by the audience to have made the best pitch walks away with a $25,000 cash prize. So I think that your time is well spent if you apply and do your 30-second pitch. Not only will you have the opportunity to be considered for that $25,000, really it's about the opportunity to pitch and to get the support around that. Because we know that women entrepreneurs are more daunted than their male counterparts at pitching for investment, and we really want to move that dial. So thank you very much for joining us. Applications for Pitch for the Purse are open until October 23rd, so you have another, I believe that's 11 days, quick math. There's not a lot of quick math this morning. Another 11 days to apply to Pitch for the Purse. So please join us, and thank you for being with us this morning. Mike, thank you. This was really fun. I hope you enjoyed being on camera this time.
Anytime, yes.
Okay, anytime.
Well, we'll see.
Wonderful. I'm glad that we got that recorded.
Okay.
Thank you very much.